All right, Texans top the Panthers. We have a special Sunday stream reacting to it all. We'll hear from some guys in the locker room. We'll try to put in perspective the magnitude of the events that happened and how they impact things moving forward as well. As the Texans they have less than 10 days to make a decision on the 53-man roster. I think some guys really helped themselves yesterday. I think we saw some good stuff. I think some guys are fighting uphill battles. But the overall takeaway yesterday was the offensive line looked good. The offensive line and the running back committee, they look good. And the offensive line did not allow a pressure per PFF. There was one pressure. I think you could chalk that down to CJ. But the offense, first team offense, some bad-ish, but for the most part, pretty good. You had the defense forcing the Panthers to punt on 4 plays. Will Anderson, his hold negated Derek Stingley's interception on the first play. But then you had CJ Stroud. He overshoots Nico Collins, though that he's probably going to have to make more times than not. But he overshoots Nico Collins, and then they immediately respond on the next series. And it was the best stretch by Nick Chubb, where you had CJ Stroud eventually connecting with Nico Collins on 4th down for a Texans touchdown. And from there, the offensive day was done. Now, I think this stretch, the CJ Stroud stretch of the preseason game is really kind of what Texans football could look like in 2025. And by that, I mean you have the defense playing really well. The quarterback doesn't have to be perfect, where you saw the miss to Nico Collins. But in clutch situations, a lot of times it's going to be 3rd downs. But in this case, it was a 4th down. The quarterback's got to come through. And I think that's kind of the perfect recipe for CJ Stroud based on what this roster is. I don't expect the offensive line to go full stretches without giving up pressures. But the CJ Stroud stretch is what 2025 Texans football could look like. Making a mistake, not the end of the world. The defense is going to get it right back to you. And then kind of a mistake on 3rd down, maybe holding the ball a little bit too long. But on 4th down, you come through, you make the play, and you never look back. And that was the end, really, for the first team offense. Now, the biggest talk was the stretch by Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb had his best stretch as a Texan, and he ended up 5 yards per carry. It looked solid. Had caught the dump off pass that made 2nd down more friendly. And Nick Chubb was pretty good after the game. And I want to make sense of this, though, because I do think there's some interesting victory laps going on when it comes to Nick Chubb. But spoke to Nick Chubb after the game. I was in the scrum. Here was what Nick Chubb had to say after easily his best stretch as a Texan.
Nick, with the game, your debut, how did you feel like it went? Were you happy with things went for it?
Yeah, I thought it went good. I think, as a whole, the whole team played well offensively. The big guys up front did a good job getting pushed, opening up holes. And, for me, it was just, I haven't played since December, so a lot of anxiety, a lot of nerves, but it felt good to go out there and get tackled again.
For you, how different is a game and being yourself versus a training camp atmosphere?
What do you mean?
Like, are you able to show up more and be more yourself in the way you run behind your pads in a preseason, in a game versus in training camp, or is it all the same?
Like practice versus game?
Yeah, just for you to be able to display kind of your attributes.
Oh, well, I guess because I think one of the best things I do is play tackles in the practice. It's pretty much tagged. Right? So, I think the game just allows you to kind of be more yourself.
How important was it? It looked like they did a really good job. What specifically did they do to open up some room for you?
Just very physical. I think it goes back to practice, how we practice every day. We have a lot of runs in practice. Coach Nick, he does a good job of making sure the guys are getting a lot of runs, be very physical up front, and they carry it over to the game.
How important was it, with this being game 2 of 3, not knowing the playing situation next week, to get some momentum, a little bit of confidence as a group, and individually for you?
Yeah, it felt good. All the camp we've been kind of hitting each other, and That's preseason game. Like I got that in place. It's good to go out there and get somebody else live, hit someone else for once.
Nick, along those lines, your defense obviously talks about that. It's one of the best in the league. Was this more reflective, perhaps, of what the offense can do to play against another team that maybe they're not like your defense?
Yeah, it's definitely a difference, going against our defense every day and then, playing someone else. Things were a lot open. It felt a lot slower, compared to playing our defense every day in practice. So, that shout out to our defense, how good they are, how physical and how fast they are.
You said there was some nerves. At what point do those nerves go away?
After the first play. When you get tackled, it's all
Why nerves? Just trying to work your way back and everything?
No, it's just how it's always been ever since I played football. First game, first time you play.
CJ running the Nick Haley offense, how did you think that went and some of the playbook now being in play in the real game?
I think it went good. I think Nick does a great job of calling the plays. CJ getting us all lined up in execution. I talk to Nick all the time. He understands, that running the ball opens up everything. He's a young coach, and it's impressive that he understands, how important it is to be physical up front before anything else.
When you're in 12 personnel with the two tights, you like that when you got Stover and Dalton as extra blockers.
I like that a lot. Those guys do a great job every day of, being physical and blocking guys.
All right, man, a few words. We got the mic situation fixed as well. We'll get into the offensive line and how they looked. I do want to kind of touch on this Chubb thing because I find it a little bit interesting that while it was Nick Chubb's best stretch, I do think it needs to also be put in perspective. And what me and Cody have said is that Nick Chubb looks like RB3 in training camp. That's been the basis of it. He looks like RB3 in training camp, and not explosive, doesn't look great. D'Amico kind of said he was trying to find his way. You see him run after plays and all that. And the Nick Chubb defense, fair or not, and I think it could be fair, is, well, once they get into a game, that's when Nick Chubb's going to thrive. Like, Nick Chubb's going to thrive once they get into a game, almost insinuating that he's going to separate himself from the other backs that we've said have looked better than him. And that's really the basis of it. And if you look at this preseason game, Woody Marks looked better than Nick Chubb. I think it's safe to say, and I thought that was another bright spot. There's just a little bit of an extra kick when Woody Marks is running the ball. He had 7 carries for 40 yards. He was close to 6 yards per carry. Woody Marks was, and he looked better than Nick Chubb. A little bit more kick, I would say. Like, if you were watching this game and I asked you which running back performed the best, and this is while we're tooting the horn of Nick Chubb, which running back would you say looked better? Woody Marks, right? You would say that, right? Like, Woody Marks, right? Yes, we can agree. The last running back that ran behind the first team offensive line was Dare Ogunbowale. Dare Ogunbowale had nearly 6 yards per carry as well. I think he had 5.4, maybe 5.5, whatever. He looked pretty good running behind that offensive line, right? We didn't sit there and toot the horn too much of Dare Ogunbowale. So you can make a case that when running behind the first or second string offensive line, from what we've seen in these 2 preseason games, I don't even know if a case has to be made. I just think this needs to be kind of sounded out. You can make a case that Nick Chubb's been the 3rd best back, even in preseason play. So that's the whole point. And you want to see what Dameon Pierce looks like. But yes, it definitely looked better yesterday than it did in practice. But even with all that, with what we've seen in these games and what we've seen from Chubb, you can make an easy case that 2 guys that were running behind that offensive line actually looked better than Nick Chubb. It's not a very hard case to make. It's cut and dry. On the super chat,
swarm.
Did Chubb show enough to make be a lock? Yeah, I think he's going to be part of this committee for sure. I think he's for sure going to be a part of this committee. The question is though, like what's up with Dameon Pierce? Like, do they keep 5 running backs? Are they going to keep 5 running backs? Do they trust Joe Mixon to come back? Because that's the other thing you got to ask. Like, if Joe Mixon comes back, we know that he's a better back at this point than Chubb, right? We think. We don't know how serious this foot injury is or what he's going to look like behind the system. We know Woody Marks is on the team. They seem to love Dare Gumbawale for a number of reasons. So now the question kind of becomes about Dameon Pierce. Afternoon to HDAV Traveler. Yes, it was against the Panthers, but hey, you can only you can only judge it the way you want to judge it. I don't know when Dameon Pierce gets back on the field, and that's a real question. Is when do we see Dameon Pierce back on the field? And is he a for sure lock at this point? I think they obviously like what they saw from Nick Chubb. They should like what they saw from all the backs. I also thought a good stretch for the backs was when they got the ball inside the 5-6 yard line, and you had a nice hard run by J.J. Taylor right up the middle to the 1, then a hard run up the middle, just short. And then they finish it off with British Brooks. And then another underrated situation, although it wasn't like too crucial, but at the end of the game when they needed 1 first down to end it, they were able to hand it to Jordan and end things. So the running backs look good. The running backs look good, no doubt about it. They look very good. CJ Stroud, 6 of 8, 44 yards, touchdown, no interceptions. That's really all you could ask from CJ. CJ looks solid too. And he seems to be comfortable behind this offensive line. The miss to Nico Collins is probably something he's going to beat himself up for, but I don't think that's a throw that he misses very often. But CJ Stroud looked very good. We don't go as like play-by-play of preseason, like on the preseason on the post-game shows in the preseason, but we do them on the Sunday after. During the season, as has been the case during the life of the channel, we will go right back into right after the game, or an hour and a half after the game for home games. But we don't really need like a play-by-play. We'll just focus on the key things. Massive question. Is Ursary going to start at left tackle? Have they seen enough of Ariante Ursary at left tackle to where they feel that this is their best 5? They always talk about the best 5. We automatically assume Cam Robinson was going to be one of those best 5. But with Cam Robinson out for a couple of weeks, there's a little bit, I don't want to call it a dilemma, but there is definitely something that you need to think about with Ariante Ursary. There's a chess move and there are checker moves. Chess moves, obviously long-term, checker moves, short-term. Long-term, Ariante Ursary is going to be your starting left tackle, you think. And that's kind of where he's naturally more comfortable. So we think Cam Robinson's going to be one and done. And then eventually, Ariante Ursary is going to take over at left tackle. Ariante Ursary is going to take over at left tackle. Now, at the start of camp, when Cam Robinson was there, Ariante Ursary was on the right side, and he was getting a lot of work in on the right side. But now, since Cam Robinson's been out, Ursary's basically been on the left side. So, do you feel comfortable enough when it comes to the checker move? Do you feel comfortable enough just throwing Ursary back to the right side, putting Cam Robinson on the left, and calling it a day? Do you feel comfortable enough doing that? The other thing is, when we're talking about the future and you're talking about your future left tackle, would you rather, especially if you think he is already the best left tackle on the team, and that seems to be a real popular opinion. Like in the press box, like when I'm talking to the guys from the Chronicle, Alexander, I'm talking to Sam Warren, or I'm talking to Adam Wexler, Cody Stutes, the guys that I talk to, up there. The question is, do you think Ariante Ursary is already the best left tackle? It seems like it's at least like 60-40 yes. Now, whether the coaches think that or not is TBD, but we're just talking about what people who watch think, and we all have opinions. I think that Ursary, you can make a case, is the best left tackle now, and he's your long-term left tackle. Now, some will say, well, you paid Cam Robinson all this money, and how can you have him as a backup? I don't know. Who cares? What's the difference? The money is going to be the same. Like, the money is going to be the same. The salary cap situation is going to be the same, whether Ariante Ursary's at left tackle or Cam Robinson's on backing him up, or Cam Robinson's at left tackle and Ariante Ursary's at right tackle. It's not like they brought in Cam Robinson after they drafted Ariante Ursary, and most importantly, after they watched Ariante Ursary handle the left side when he was thrown into that situation. So I just think that it's kind of a chess and checker combo move. I don't think Cam Robinson's salary should come into play. I actually think the potential long-term left tackle should override a 1-year salary. I think that's kind of common sense thinking. And then the question is it your best combo? I think it's a possibility. You could do a lot worse than having Cam Robinson as your backup left tackle. And if Ursary struggles, maybe you move him back to the right. I don't know. That's something they got to figure out. There's definitely a mental element too of moving guys around too much. Sometimes that gets a little bit crazy, but they're going to have to decide what they're going to do with Ursary because this is another pretty decent showing, pretty promising. Like, it's not going to be 100% perfect for a rookie as a left tackle in the NFL. There's going to be some really, really difficult struggles. There's going to be some bad moments. Dwayne Brown is always the example that we like to use, but Ariante Ursary is at least making them have to think about it. And it's good that they hit on that because obviously you have the question marks about Blake Fisher. Other guys that I think did well for themselves in the game, I think Mario Edwards Jr. and Juice Scruggs have kind of been some guys that have gotten late momentum in camp. Mario Edwards last year was a guy who early on was someone who stuck out, and you kind of wondered, well, does that have to do with how poor the offensive line is, and how does he fit in? And then you had this suspension to Autry, and it kind of increased the need for what Mario Edwards Jr. did, and then he got suspended too. But Mario Edwards Jr. right now looks really good, and I wonder where he falls in the consistency talk by D'Amico Ryans, because D'Amico Ryans has said Tommy Togiai is their most consistent player, and that Tim Settle needs to be more consistent. I wonder how they feel about Mario Edwards Jr., because it seems like every time you look up, 97 is kind of swarming to the ball, and he's letting you know about it after. So Mario Edwards Jr. is coming on late. Juice Scruggs, too. Juice Scruggs is getting second-team reps, clear second-team reps. That wasn't happening before the pads came on. You talk about guys, and Nick Chubb's kind of an example, and the offensive lineman is once the pads come on, expect them to look much better. That's kind of what's happened with Juice Scruggs. Am I sitting here saying Juice Scruggs is someone that you feel good about starting and being in front of CJ Stroud in a game that actually counts? The answer to that is hell no. But since the pads have come on, Juice Scruggs has done his thing. And he's done pretty well. I thought there was a necessary showing for Justin Watson. Justin Watson's a guy. We've talked about John Mechie and the Justin Watson battle. Justin Watson had a very necessary showing as well. He looked good. I don't know if they value this, and it's always been kind of like a running joke here. The blocking receiver. It's usually like the Kevin Walter humor. But Justin Watson has good blocking stats yesterday. Advanced blocking stats. He also caught a few passes. He also drew a PI that set up a field goal at the end of the second quarter. So the Watson Mechie thing, I think if you're looking at these guys and you just ask who is the best pure receiver in camp, it's been John Mechie. Now, if you ask me which one of these guys has the bigger chance to be active during game week, I think it's Watson because he's playing the special teams too. So the Watson thing is interesting because there are other elements. I don't know how good they think he is at special teams, but I think the special teams element does matter. And he did do a good job of at least showing up yesterday and showing them that he was capable of making plays. So that was a good day for Justin Watson. Irv Smith did a good job. Not a lot from Jakob Johnson, really, but Irv Smith, he made some plays, extended the chains. He had the long play where Slovis kind of bought some time and then flicked it. A little bit of Slovis magic. Irv Smith, they need a third tight end. They need a third tight end. Irv Smith made a pretty strong case. And Irv Smith was on the side for a while. As soon as Brevin Jordan went down, Irv Smith's been ready to go. And he's been a full go. It seems like he's made the most of his opportunity. I'm saying I know Lachey was the draft pick, but I think they trust Irv Smith more in game situations right now than they do him. And then Johnson, it doesn't seem like they're going to run a ton of fullback, but you never know. I think the arrow is probably pointing down just a little bit on Jakob Johnson, although I think he has a pretty good chance at least hanging around in some form, whether it's the 53 or the practice squad. I think they feel okay about it. I think they feel okay about it. Then we have the offensive line. The offensive line looks really good, and that's one of the more relevant things for this team. It's the most polarizing position. Cole Popovich. He's been doing his thing, and one of the reasons that he's had so much success early on, small sample size, has been it seems like this unit is coached better. And Jake Andrews was a guy that he knew back in college. He was a guy that Nick Caley's familiar with, hasn't played a ton of ball. I caught up with Jake Andrews after the game. I don't think many of you have heard Jake Andrews talk. Maybe y'all heard the Texans radio, but this is what one of the centers, the guys that they're trusting to kind of, I don't want to say oversee the culture, but be the guy who gets the ball in CJ Stroud's hands and has a hand in the protections. This is Jake Andrews after the game. Might be the first time y'all have heard from him. Here he is.
How would you assess where the offensive line is now compared to when you first got here?
I mean, obviously there's been time involved, so I think everything gets a little bit sweeter with time. I think the chemistry factor has obviously gone up a lot. Just the understanding of the scheme and what Pop wants it all to look like has obviously gone up. And I think we're having fun too. So I've definitely been positive, and we got a long way to go still, but we're inching towards that.
With Pop, you obviously had experience with him before. Have you seen any changes in Pop now versus back then, maybe?
Yeah, he sweetened up a little bit. He had a girl not too long ago, a couple of years ago, and he was mean to us in college. But he's still the same old guy. Just wants to win, and I can respect that. I think all of us in the O-line room want to do the same thing, and so we all have the same common goal in mind. And he's been great. It's been refreshing.
Do you feel kind of like you're a pretty young player, but it feels like you kind of have like a veteran presence on this offensive line? Does it kind of feel that way?
I don't know. I don't really see it as that. I was blessed to be able to be behind David Andrews for a whole year, and then the following year in New England. And I learned a lot from him, not only football, but leadership, life. And so I try to take a couple of things that I learned from him and other guys in the building up there, and things that I've learned while being here too. And just trying to be a guy that people can lean on. The center comes with that leadership role, whether you like it or not. And, you kind of have to earn that. And I don't think I've been here long enough to completely have that. And there's older guys than me in the room too that have been here and earned that role as well. But if I can help wherever I can, that's what I want to do.
Just being a little bit more physical than the defensive line, is that
solve in a game? I know Ursary talked about he's pretty proud of the physicality, just being meaner than those other guys. That solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, the old saying, everybody's playing until you hit them in the mouth. I think, when you can take the defensive lineman and drive them 4 or 5 yards off the ball, and you move the line of scrimmage, whether you block a linebacker or not, you're probably going to have a pretty good play, And obviously our mindset's to block everybody and get a hat on a hat. But when you have plays like that and you can really punish the down lineman and drive them off the ball, I think that's something that can, cause big plays.
And I mean, that just kind of just feels like a leader of an offensive line. Like the whole vibe of the offensive line is different. They just seem a little bit more nasty, even in practice. Like even after a game, like it just you hear from Lake and Tomlinson, you hear from even Titus Howard now. There's like a completely different sound. Jake Andrews, you hear from these offensive linemen, and it just does feel like more like an offensive line. It doesn't feel like just a bunch of guys doing their own thing, and that's what it felt like the Tunsil, Titus with Tunsil and Shaq Mason thing. It just felt like 3 guys just kind of doing their own thing, going about, and it really there wasn't really like a sense of urgency. It just didn't feel, and I always go back to what Aaron Wilson said when we were going to talk to Patterson last year. Like, hey, what's he like? What's it like talking to Patterson? Is he pretty cool dude or whatever? And he just said, yeah, he's an adult. And I think that just kind of puts in perspective what the Texans offensive line is right now. Do I think this offensive line is going to have some struggles? Yes. There's going to be some reaction Mondays where we're talking about how bad this offensive line was and how they need to be better. I'm sure of it. Like it's not going to be perfect. But are we going to have shit shows like what you saw against the Minnesota Vikings last year? My answer would be probably not. And if it does happen, I think there's going to be a much better adult version of accountability that comes with being a professional athlete and playing for Cole Popovich. So as far as the offense goes, I think we can really just put a bow on the offense by saying the offensive line performed well. The running backs look good. Nick Chubb, probably still the 3rd best preseason back, much like practice, but the best that we've seen from Nick Chubb. Watson, good showing. Justin Watson, very good showing by him. And that's really it as far as the offense. Irv Smith, too. Give Irv Smith his credit. He did his thing. Defensive side of the ball, I mean, the first team defense didn't allow Carolina to do anything. Bryce Young didn't complete a pass, and they had no chance. And even when they have an interception wiped away on the first play, they make Carolina punt 3 plays later. I thought Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter's days were over earlier, but they brought him back in on 3rd down in Series 2. But the first team defense, it's as expected. This is what we expect from this defense. I thought the second team, though, was where you kind of see, like, as we're talking about young players and we're talking about Ariante Ursary, one of the more polarizing picks of the draft was Jalen Smith. And I thought Jalen Smith did a good job responding after a tough day in joint practices. Joint practices was his welcome to the NFL practice. Thursday against Carolina, that was his welcome to the NFL practice. And he ended up getting an interception on game day, and he performed at a high level. And that's what you want. Will Anderson, after the joint practice, said, struggling is part of where we are right now and what we're supposed to do. It's supposed to happen. And it's about how you respond. That was the exact quote. And that's what most coaches will say, and that's what most generic football players will say, is it's about how you respond. And it's inevitable that you're going to struggle, not just in practice, preseason, but you're going to struggle in the season. It's about how you respond. I thought Jalen Smith did a good job responding. I thought he did a really good job. He's very physical for a corner. He's CB3 right now. And after a rough go in joint practice, he responded. I thought that was impressive by Jalen Smith. You also see on the D line, Darrell Taylor. I mean, they're just running him to death. I don't know if they're just trying to see, like, build his stamina up or what, but for someone who you feel like is going to make the team, Darrell Taylor is out there kind of grinding. He might need some off days. Like, I don't think he needs to play the next. I mean, I feel like he's kind of earned it at this point, right? Has he? Don't know. But Darrell Taylor, they're definitely testing him, and they're definitely trying to get his stamina up. I thought he had a good showing. The safeties, nothing really stuck out at safety. I think that there are some intriguing things about Yeast and Mills, but once CJ Gardner-Johnson gets back, I don't know that you're even worried about that. I thought Blake Fisher was okay. Rich Boy Jay says he was okay. Ended up going to the tent, but yeah, he was fine. It was definitely better than what we'd seen. Evan asks on the super chat, safe to say Slovis is awful. Yeah, I mean, we know that. He's not great, but I thought he played all right. Metch is definitely being cut. Yeah, I mean, Justin Watson needed to show up a little bit, and he showed up a little bit. Bird did get a sack. That is true. I don't think he's making it at this point. But that's really all we have to take away from that game. It was a good game. As far as the in-game experience, they've brought a lot of attention to that. The in-game setup's much nicer. Like the screens, they're much nicer. They've added a large, I think this is a cool addition. They've added, I think this was good in the press box even. But they've added a large countdown of the TV timeout. Like it's very large. It's taken over the whole, like a big portion of the screen. So I think that's cool. You know exactly how much time you have to go to the restroom, do whatever. I think that's cool. The speakers are loud as hell. Like there's like some vibrating in the speakers. They're extremely loud. And other than that, not really like an electric atmosphere, but that's the stuff that stuck out on the game. Then after the game, we had CJ Stroud in a Mariners hat. It's got a lot of attention. Pro Football Focus even wrote an article on it. Mike Florio, a whole article on this CJ Stroud situation. Let's see what Mike Florio had to say about this. He said it creates a stir. I always love Mike Florio because Mike Florio is a guy who's like really smart, and he's enough of a slime ball to where he'll stir it up. But then there's other times where he'll want to have like journalistic principles. But I think he has a good balance. I actually like Mike Florio as a resource for the NFL. But then this is what Mike Florio said. And I think his writing is interesting too. Once upon a time, my morning routine consisted of 1, pouring a large bowl of Frosted Flakes, 2, adding milk, 3, opening the sports page of the Wheeling Intelligencer. I don't even know what that is. And studying the current MLB standings and box scores while wolfing down the cereal before the flakes became unfrosted and saturated with milk. Back then, the Houston Astros resided in the National League West. The Seattle Mariners didn't exist. Nowadays, the two franchises share membership in the American League West, and they're currently battling for the division title, with the Astros leading the Mariners as of Saturday by half game. Also on Saturday, the Houston Texans hosted the Carolina Panthers in a preseason game, and Texans quarterback CJ Stroud arrived for the contest with a Seattle Mariners hat on his head. It naturally created a stir for Houstonians who support both the local football and local baseball teams. Sam Warren, previously mentioned, of the Houston Chronicle, has the details. Here's the video of Stroud walking in. The Mariners took notice. They shouted him out. Then Florio goes on. This is where Florio, he's climbing up to the soapbox. He'll get up there. He's acting like this is trivial, but now he's going to get up there. That's the best thing about Florio, is he is a full service guy. Like he will question journalistic integrity, but then he will be the guy that stirs shit up. He will talk about stories that matter, and then he will talk about clicks, like how much clicks he gets. So he's kind of got Florio is great, but I feel like he's in more of an identity crisis than Bruce Jenner was at the end of the Kardashians, because he's just all over the place. We know we're going to get to the soapbox. I haven't even read this yet. Stroud, who swapped out the baseball hat for a Texans beanie when he took the field, also wore the Mariners cap to his post-game press conference. He laughed it off. He laughed off a question about his headgear. Quote, I mean, I love hats. Like, I wear hats all the time. I probably have every team, but I support the Astros and the Dodgers because I'm from LA. It's kind of contradicting, but I still love the Astros, but it's all good. I understand. It's all about the swag, baby. I'm just kidding. Ha ha. Here's Florio's words. The Astros-Dodgers thing is definitely contradicting, given the sign-stealing scandal that put an asterisk on the Astros' 2017 World Series win over the Dodgers when Stroud was a 16-year-old student in high school. While he can wear whatever he wants to wear, there's a basic win in Rome quality that comes from being the starting quarterback for an NFL team. Local fans of the football team are also fans of the other local sports teams. Right or wrong, they expect the players to act accordingly. Hat flaps are not unprecedented. While Stroud didn't show up wearing a Colts hat or Titans hat or Jaguars hat, Houstonians will be naturally sensitive to the sight of a Seattle Mariners hat on the head of the Texans starting quarterback. After all, fan is short for fanatic. And players would be wise to at least factor that broader sense into deciding which hat from the collection should be donned at the stadium for a game. Is it worth inviting avoidable venom from fans who are fanatical about both the local baseball team and local football team? Our guess is that moving forward, Stroud's Mariners hat will remain on the shelf unless and until he's the starting quarterback for the Seahawks. The end. Signed, Mike Florio. Oh my gosh, this is hilarious. 320 on the soup says, which home game would you recommend going to? I would recommend San Francisco. Easily San Francisco. I don't know if they're going to be good, but you don't see them here very much. And I feel like they're going to roll deep. I feel like it's going to be a decent San Francisco 49ers group. The CJ Stroud thing I think is weird. Like, I don't, whatever. Like, being mad at CJ Stroud for wearing a Mariners hat is kind of an eye roll to me. I think it's just kind of okay. Like, whatever. But I also think, like, the notion that he has to suddenly, like, oh, you got to be aware of how fans are going to act. I don't know. Like, there's versions of this where the people that are the loudest and the most obnoxious on Twitter and get the angriest about stuff like this, they create reactions from actual organizations living in the real world off of Twitter that are overreactions, and most people aren't even thinking about it. Most people aren't even really like thinking about it. It's just like the small cesspool of Twitter. Now, CJ was asked about it at the podium, so it was kind of brought there, the Mariners hat. And it had already created a little bit of viral attention from what I see. I didn't even know he was wearing the Mariners hat till I got home. I try to raw dog games now. I heard Kyle Brandt talking about it, raw dog. I don't really scroll through Twitter. I'll tweet some stuff and I'll take my notes, but I'm not just trying to scroll through Twitter during the game. I'm trying to actually watch the game. And I think that's a good concept now for me personally. Some people just like to scroll. Oh, so-and-so said this, ha, ha, ha. No, I've gotten to where the phone goes down, the notes go up, Twitter is up, and I'll tweet something like as I'm watching the game. So I didn't even know about the Mariner thing until I got in the car and I heard him asked about it. But the guys from California, the guys from California. So, and back in the millennial days, like, we were rocking hats of everyone. He's not a millennial. We were rocking hats of everyone. But I don't really think much of the whole thing. I think it's a weird thing to get mad of. I also think there's like some toxicity that comes with like the hey, this is the group of fans that hold the. You got to be a diehard. We possess the thing. I said something about it on X, and then someone said like that he has a right. That he has a right, and they have a right. No shit. Thanks for the Captain Obvious. Quincy says, I feel like this is a popular take. Some people wear hats as fashion. People ask me all the time if I'm a Yankees fan because of the hat, and I don't be noticing I have it on. It's just because of the fit, legitimately. Yeah, I think you've seen Paul Wall in every hat. And Paul Wall was like millennial time. Like any rapper or any person that rocked hats, they just match the outfit. Kind of just happens. The hat thing is silly and unnecessary. Yeah, it got out there though. It's definitely a thing. Florio's not bored. Florio's a hardworking dude, man. Say what you want about him, but he's a hardworking dude. Might be an identity crisis, but he is a hardworking dude. But the thing that I'm always kind of like the biggest eye roll over is when you hear someone say, well, it's not a big deal, but he needs to be aware. Okay. He needs to be aware. Why? Because there's a portion of people online that are getting pissed off about it and whining about it and crying about it and being weird about it. That's always like the thing. And Florio said it. And I'm not in PR, but if you're acknowledging that it's dumb, but then you're saying, well, he should be aware of it because there's dumb people. I guess that's just a reality of the life that we're living. But is it also just adjusting to something that's dumb just because you want to please the vocal backlash? Don't know. Don't really know. Sports Talk with D says, our fans are ignorant. They're more focused on the hat than the positives of them. The same people. I don't think most fans cared about it. I don't think most fans really cared about it. Like it's not. I think it's a reaction based on certain reaction. Now Seattle kind of threw some fuel to the fire, but it was probably the most viral thing that happened yesterday. Overall takeaways moving forward. I think the battle between Mechie and Watson, I think Watson did enough for himself to where whatever they thought before the last week and a half, I think they're probably going to move back in that direction. And I think special teams is going to matter a little bit more with Watson showing what he showed. Do think they get something from Mechie if they end up saying goodbye, but I think Watson did really well for himself. Running back situation, Dameon Pierce, what does he have to do? Does he have to do anything? Nick Chubb showed that he can at least perform top 3 in the preseason, which is what he's done. Dare Gumbawale, Woody Marks, Nick Chubb, they're in that mix. Chubb's probably the 3rd best performer in the preseason, and he's done his thing. He's been the 3rd best in practice. Where does Dameon Pierce fit in that mix? What does Dameon Pierce look behind this offensive line? Do they think that Dameon Pierce needs to at least get some joint practice action against Detroit, or maybe like some preseason action? Or do they just feel confident enough that they can activate Dameon Pierce? I wish we knew. They've said some really nice things about Dameon Pierce. Maybe they're just saving him. Someone said in the chat, they're treating him like Christian Harris. If they're treating him like Christian Harris, then that means that they think Dameon Pierce is the top of the depth chart type of ball player. Because Christian Harris immediately goes with the ones when he gets team action. Now, there's kind of a platoon between him and Henry To'oTo'o, but I think they know what they got in Christian Harris. They don't need to see anything really from Christian Harris, like preseason-wise. Like he's not going to play his way onto the team. He's already on the team. Do they feel the same way about Dameon Pierce? Maybe he does. Maybe they do. That might be a real astute observation and real astute analysis in the chat. Maybe that's how they feel. But we'll see what that looks like. Johnny Lambo on the chat. Landry, you brought a good point about the generation we grew up in, late 30s. I was wearing Chicago Bulls and LA Lakers gear when I was a Rockets fan. It was a style thing back then. Yeah, it was. I think it's kind of stayed alive a little bit on the West Coast. Not completely sure. I don't know what's up with Mixon's foot. I have no idea. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen him. No idea. Your guess is as good as mine at this point when it comes to Joe Mixon and what he's going to look like. But I think they have a good idea about the 53. I don't think there's any exhilarating battles. I think the biggest battle right now and the biggest question as we progress, and I think this is going to be the way that things are looked at least on SNL. And here is, should Ariante Ursary start the season as left tackle? Even if Cam Robinson is healthy, should Ariante Ursary be the starting left tackle for the Texans? That is the number one question for the Texans. Should Ariante Ursary be the starting left tackle no matter what? It's the combination of the checkers and the chess move. And then what do they do at running back? Dameon Pierce, where you at? Or do they even care? Those are the things that matter at this point. There's some pillow fights on the back of the 53. We don't even know if those guys are going to stay around because they're going to be able to work the wire. But that's where we're at. And Seattle Mariners hats create emotion. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. Appreciate y'all for joining me on the Saturday edition, Sunday edition, special Sunday edition. Again, post-game shows in season after the game, immediately after on the road. After I get back from the stadium at home, it's the last day. My daughter's a 1-year-old. I can't believe it. I'm going to go enjoy that. Hope y'all enjoy your Sunday. And always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate y'all for rolling through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we